Well, my name's John Heineken. I am from San Francisco, or the Bay Area, and I grew up sailing a bunch there and windsurfing with my dad. And I got into kiting when I was actually like my freshman year of college, and a friend of mine taught me, and kite racing was kind of just at the beginning, but it seemed like something I might eventually get into, and it was on the radar, but I wasn't doing it. And then I was doing an Olympic campaign and a 49er, and eventually that just became a little too much to do school and trying to travel around the world and compete against these guys that it's their full-time job. So I basically kind of dropped that, did college sailing, kited a lot more, and eventually got into kite racing when the Worlds were at the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, which is my home. And I basically just trained a lot for that event because I got hooked up with some of the local guys like Chip and Mike Zychek that helped me out, and then from there I just kind of fell in love with it. It's like all the sailing that I love without the logistics of getting boats around the world and getting somebody else there to race with you. It's just so easy and simple, and you know, some people think it's gear intensive. It's so mellow on that side of it compared to actually say like racing a high performance sailboat, and we do the same speeds and have as much fun without all the boat work. Well, if you're going to go buy a brand new 49er, you're going to spend 30 grand. And then you're probably going to buy a second one to have in Europe when you travel over there. So from that perspective, it's definitely inexpensive, and you can put your boat in your bag and go to Europe. You know what I mean? Which is the thing I love. I can go from event to event around the world and not have to worry about the fact that I have to also ship a container full of gear. And from the kiting side, I can see that, yeah, you got to get a different board. So it's another board, and it is more expensive than going buying another surfboard. But right now we're at a cool point where everything's pretty much converging, and we've limited the size, the development's slowing, and all the boards are starting to look really similar. So you can go buy one of these, and it's going to be competitive for a long time, which kind of ends the full-on gear war of a new board every event. It's kind of like hating on guys that wear straps in the waves, you know what I mean? It's, you do what you know and you think it's the best, and you know, we're kind of the same way with racing. We love to do it, and we love to do everything else too, but I can see that you get used to what you know how to do and what you're good at, and you stick kind of in that realm. But the thing that it does is it opens up kiting to so many more places and so many more days. Like we couldn't have been kiting today. It was 8 knots and we went out there and did 2 races, you know, and it's definitely at points you're like, wow, this is really light, and I'm having to work, you know, my body differently than usual, but that's fun in a way too, because you're out there and you're still going 15 knots upwind, which is incredible to be going double the wind speed upwind and making plenty of ground and going around the course with 20 other people. So if people in LA kind of figured that out, I mean, we're doing it in San Francisco because it was started there and it's windy every day in the summer, and we can have this dependable sea breeze to do a series with, but you can do it in Long Beach and 12 knots of breeze pretty much every day, where you're not really going to go out and play on a twin tip because it's not that fun, you know? So I think that if people figure that out, even if you go buy a bunch of kind of free race boards and just get 10 of them with your buddies and go out there, it's the same exact thing as what we're doing, because we like to go ride together and push each other and be on the same gear. I mean, I'm on the exact same kites as over a year ago, same model, and the board I've been on since before the Worlds, and we've registered it, and it's going to be definitely the board that I'm on next year at the Worlds. So that's going to be over 18 months of riding the same board, which I think is pretty amazing. Same design, you know, nothing's changing. People may be modeling things after it because it won the Worlds last year, but that's good. I mean, that means everything's catching up in a way. So I think it's very important that all the production boards that are coming out are built well and fast enough that anybody can be competitive, so that people aren't spending $2,000 or $1,500 or whatever and then getting a board that's going to break. So I think having all those boards be solid and competitive is really important for the sport to grow and not scare people away. Because then you could go buy a board and come down here and race with us, you know, and then go to the next event, or maybe next year, same board, and come out and play with us. It's a lot about who I'm with. I mean, if I'm with Adam and Bernie at Sherman, and our goal is to go out there and do as many races as we can around the buoys today, and, you know, work on our tacks or see who's kind of figured something out upwind and got a better angle, then we go do that. But I mean, often we'll go do that 2 sessions a day, and then the sunset session at Sherman, it's blowing 25, and it's like, dude, I'm just gonna go ride my twin tip. I just want to go have fun, you know. Not to say race board isn't fun, but I like to have the contrast. And in Santa Barbara, I rode my race board like twice when I was at school there. Always on the coast, you know. That's what the conditions are there, and it was great. And then if it was really light, I'd go to Ledbetter and ride my race board. So I think doing all of it kind of provides the contrast and actually adds, like riding my surfboard strapless helped me a lot on my race board because I know what the board's going to do, even though it's a totally different board. I think that some of that is because of the IKA's goal of getting kiteboarding into the Olympics. And that's going to happen, or right now it seems like the only way that's happening is a sailing class. So we're going to be in there because we're racing sailboats, essentially. Which obviously is great for me. It's like that's kind of the mentality I've grown up with. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the face of the sport. I mean, just because that part, if it were to go Olympic, wouldn't be the only discipline that's out there. It doesn't mean that it's dictating how the whole sport functions. But if it does go Olympic, that's going to be, it's going to be more widely seen. I mean, the average person will think of kiteboarding maybe as racing because that's what they've seen on TV. I think any visibility we can get, mainstream visibility, would be good because it's definitely kind of on the verge of really becoming accessible to a lot of people, but not that many people realize that they can just go take lessons and in 2 days be kiteboarding. It's kind of like this, oh, well, I'm not a water person or whatever. It seems so far away because if you go up sailing, you see it, it's like, yeah, I'll do that, but the average person to get into it, unless you're a wakeboarder and you really like the wake style trick side of it and you see that as a way to do it more of the time, or you're a racer and you want to go race because it's sailing also, I think it's kind of it seems like a far-fetched idea to just get into. So anything we can get to kind of promote the sport would be good. And obviously it'll help the racing side. Well, it'll help the racing side in terms of getting some people really good at it and getting money in that direction, but it could stunt the sport also because we'll have to freeze at some point and create an RSX type class, which if that happens too early, that's only going to make a really good group of people that focus on that, but nobody else is going to want to do it because the goal of those people is to get to the Olympics. So there's going to be these people who are supported well, travel all around the world, go to these events, and go to the Olympics probably, or compete to go to the Olympics, but nobody else is going to want to race maybe that type of board or those kites if we limit it too early, because we want everybody to be on the same stuff. There aren't that many people doing it right now. We don't want to start spreading it all over. I think that that nomination shows that the sailing community is recognizing it as a competitive sailing class, and I've seen that from a lot of sailors, especially around the Bay Area, because that's who I'm exposed to most. But we'll come off the water having lined up with some of the high performance racing boats out there, TP52s or 49ers or whatever, and we'll have guys driving up from the yacht club to come check out what we were on because they're like, you guys smoked us, that was incredible. You had speed on us upwind downwind, you're obviously out there practicing races, playing a tactical game, and we're kiteboarders, like how do we do this, because a lot of sailors already know how to kite and they see it as just basically a great way to combine their sailing and kiting, and I think that's pretty cool. So I think that the fact, going back to the nomination, the fact that U.S. Sailing and Rolex thought that it was worth nominating me for that award shows that it is becoming mainstream enough in the sailing community and respected enough as a class that they were willing to put that up there and say, look, we're kind of legitimizing this, we're respecting this whole thing they're doing, which felt good for the whole. I think that was bigger for the class than for me personally, because a lot of people see that, and a lot of people that probably don't even know that we're course racing saw that nomination and are like, oh, what's going on there? Let's check that out. So I think that our sport's small enough that any sort of promotion of any discipline is good. I don't think that one's taking away from the other. I think that there's far more people out there going out and riding waves on their kite than riding a race board. So I don't think that the kite racing is at all hurting any other disciplines. I see a lot of people interested. Actually, this event, it's amazing how many more people have race boards and how many people are just like, people that are out there riding their boots normally on their wakeboard are like, that's really cool. You guys are hauling ass, you're taking gnarly, having gnarly wipeouts, and they're actually like picking up a race board and being like, can I ride this thing? Can I try it out? And then borrowing a board and going out and doing the event. So I think that it is gaining interest and at least turning heads. People kind of seeing that it's not just like the light air game, because we have had some really windy racing, which is good. That's one of the problems, is that I came off the water saying today, like, the one thing about being the guys that can kite in light air is you have to kite in light air. Because sometimes I grew up sailing in big breeze and wanting to go fast and wanting to have, big crashes because I made a mistake, and that doesn't necessarily happen out there today. It's a totally different game, but you're still kiting and you're still out playing that game with 20 other guys, and you have to do it better than the rest of them. So it's just as exciting. It's kind of a different pace. Well, hopefully they have access to somebody with a board, which would be the best, because I can understand people not just being like, wow, I'm really interested in that, go online, fill out the credit card thing. I think you pretty much have to get into it from knowing somebody that's doing it and trying it and being like, wow, this is a really cool feeling. Like, this board is riding completely differently, and it's really fun to make it fly over the waves and ride the fins and things like that. So hopefully there's somebody near them that they can kind of get in touch with and ride the board. And if you can get a fleet of 5 guys in your area to do it, it's like we go out there with anywhere from 2 to 15 people at Sherman Island and just pick up races, just like beer can races, basically. Go out and go around the buoys, and if you finish first, you start last the next lap. And it always keeps it competitive. You know where you're at, you're having fun, and you go in and drink beer after, and it's great. I guess you're kind of right. There are people that hate on it. So just go out there and ride a board and see if you can do it, and then start telling us it looks boring until that thing flips up under you and you have sharp fins coming up your ass. That's something that the kiteboarding industry maybe doesn't recognize, is that they should be trying to draw those people in, because there's a huge market there. Maybe, as big as the kiteboarding market getting into racing as the sailing market getting into racing. And the sailing newsletters and whatnot have already been embracing that and bringing our results in, and then they get a bunch of, we hear about it from all our sailing friends. They're like, dude, you're on Scuttlebutt. Like, that's awesome what you guys are doing. We want to come out and watch a race or get into it.